I have the pleasure of being with Mack Stiles. Mack, welcome.
Thank you, Jeff.
In ministry a long time. And Mack is a conference speaker, author of numerous books, including Evangelism, How the Whole Church Speaks of Jesus. But I think perhaps best of all, you're a pastor.
I am a pastor.
In the Middle East. And you serve an international church there. So welcome.
Thank you.
Well, tell us about your work there. Tell us about your church, how long you've been there.
Sure.
What you're preaching through now.
Right.
Things like that.
Well, I am the pastor of the Erbil International Baptist Church, which is in Kurdistan. So I've been there about 2 years, after 15 years of being involved in Dubai. Right. So we're preaching through the 1 Samuel, the life and times of King David, just chapter by chapter, which has been very exciting. We've had some tremendous things happen in our church. We're small, but punching above our weight. People are coming to faith from all faith backgrounds. We've had people probably every week that join our church that have never heard the gospel, never been to church, and are amazed with the fellowship. So it's an exciting time to be there, and exciting things are happening.
Well, I think my favorite thing you said there is that many people are coming to Christ from all different backgrounds.
Yeah.
One of the main focus, it seems, of your ministry over the years has been evangelism.
Right.
Seeing those who walk in darkness to see the great light of Jesus Christ. And of course, that's, I hope, why most of us got in ministry no matter what we're doing. Tell me, how have you sought to, over the years, lead your church to become evangelistic? And how has that shaped or informed, let's say, your preaching?
Yeah. Well, a number of things. Obviously, I want a culture of evangelism. So that's really the point of evangelism, how the whole church speaks of Jesus. I've got a passion for the church to be a witnessing community. So the goal in the church is to be a gospel-centered, cross-focused, Bible-drenched community of members who are believers, who love one another, are covenanted together and caring for one another in covenanted love to be a display of the glory of God. And so actually the way that we call people to do evangelism in our church is a bit counterintuitive. We're calling people to love each other. We're calling them to be the real church. And that's based on John 13. By your love one for another, all men will know that you are my disciples and I am from the Father, in John 17. So from John 13 to John 17, which informs my preaching,
right,
what we see is unity and love in the body confirm our discipleship and confirm Christ's deity to the watching world. And so what we want to see happen is the church be vibrant in love, and then become an evangelistic furnace for people coming to faith. So when people come from other, I say other faith backgrounds.
Right.
When people come from other faith backgrounds, almost uniformly, whenever they walk into the church, they say things like, "We can't get over the love that we see here. We can't get over the fact that people from all parts of the world are caring for one another. We've never seen this before," and they're intrigued and convicted. So I think that's kind of an overview of how I want the church to speak of Jesus. Now, with that said, the people in our church are very evangelistic. They are on game. They are sharing their faith with new people. They want to know their spiritual stories. They want to know what faith background they're from. They're very sensitive, but very bold with the gospel. So we have people who know and live out and speak the gospel too individually. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No,
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the good news of the gospel. We believe in the power of the gospel, that it is the transforming agent, the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes. Yet I find, and sadly I think this is true sometimes in my own church, and I don't have any statistical evidence to back this up, but anecdotally, I think, particularly in America, we struggle to do evangelism, both individually and corporately. if we have the good news, we have this glorious, wonderful gospel, why do you think we struggle to get the salt out of the salt shaker, as Becky Pippert Becky Pippert Manley so well puts it?
A friend of mine, Becky Pippert. Yeah, which was excellent. It was an excellent book. Well, I think maybe it's in that first part of your question, doing evangelism. I find it a far more helpful to think about being evangelists. You know, that we so live in the gospel, that we so live in the gospel message, that it just comes out of us. It's a natural thing of who we are. So that we're kind of always being intentional with the gospel, rather than just thinking of it as some compartment that we've got to check off in our morning quiet time. Oh, today I will do evangelism. Rather than just, I want to live in the gospel in what Paul talks about in Galatians 2:14, you know, walking in line with the gospel. I want to so live in that when I meet my neighbor, I'm going to talk to her about my life. And so, yeah, just 3 days ago, my neighbor came up to me and said, "Are you the kind of Christian that thinks all homosexual people are going to hell?" And I said, "Well, I'm the kind of Christian that believes many homosexual people are going to hell. I think many straight people are going to hell. I think many Baptists are going to hell. I think many Catholics are going." I said, it's not the point. We go to heaven or hell based on a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And she said, yeah. I mean, never mind that what's offensive in our culture today is that I believe that people go to hell.
That's right.
I was just able, it just came out of me, you know? And then I said, "Listen, are you gay?" And she said, "I am." And I said, "Well, I want you to know I love you, and I love your partner, and we want you to know that this thing about our Christian faith, we'd like to tell you about that." So I don't know where that'll go. I mean, that's as far as I got. But it was because the gospel's on my heart for her. So I didn't go out to naturally share the gospel with her. Actually, I was taking out the trash and ran into her. So, I think it's more a function of evangelism has to be a part of our mindset. And then I think it helps that we're in a community where it's a value. So we want our churches, we want our fellowship to understand that evangelism is important, that it's cherished, and that attempts in evangelism are honored for whether it's a failure or a success. 99% of the opportunities that I take to share my faith, there's a lot of them I don't take. I duck, I get frightened or whatever, but 99% of them are fails. Nothing comes of it, as far as I know.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think to be intentional and to recognize the goal is to be faithful in this is helpful.
Yeah.
I'm just spitting out some things,
good.
Jeff.
Good. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question that I'm just going to say right up front. This is self-serving because this is the conversation we're having in my church now.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to lead well in this. I don't know that I do. So I hope you're going to help me here. Often here, I grew up in a church that did door-to-door evangelism, kind of more confrontational evangelism, explosion, things like this, and take it door-to-door.
Sure.
But what I hear now is, well, that doesn't work anymore. So we don't do that anymore. We shouldn't do that anymore. We just do relationship evangelism, which, of course, we want to build relationships with people, of course. What do you think about that? What do you make of that? Is that true? Is there only one kind of evangelism that works today, or is palatable to the modern mind? Or
we don't want to have a 10-year. We don't want to have a 10-year to the culture, but I think awkward is better than silence, and I think taking steps to share our faith are always better than having an academic faith that never moves you out of a holy huddle, as Becky Pippert used to call it. So I think I would be hesitant to put down anyone's attempts in evangelism. So, but yeah, I think we should listen to what's going on in the culture around us. We should think about things and how we would respond. I know that's true for my neighbor. I've thought about the issues. I listened to the podcasts on TGC, and I've read Sam Albury's book.
Yeah.
So, there are opportunities that come because I don't have I'm not deaf to what people are thinking or are feeling around me. But I don't know. I tend to be the no method guy.
Yeah.
I want us to, again, I want us to know the gospel so well, to be in love with the gospel so much, to be in love with Jesus so much, that the gospel message comes out of us. And people want to know about us. They want to know. They want to understand. Why do you go to Iraq? Why are you over there? And I said, well, there's some things worth risking for, and the gospel's one of them. What's that?
Yeah.
They want to know. I mean,
that's right.
So I'm kind of just living my life out, trying to be as honest as I can in evangelism.
So it's true, as Dwight Moody once said, my faulty evangelism is better than your no evangelism, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I recently...
And think, Jeff, think of how many goofy ways people come to Christ. When I listen to people's testimonies or hear about how people come to the Lord, it is rarely because someone perfectly explained the gospel.
That's right.
Rarely.
That's right.
It's some weird thing. They heard some weird preacher on TV or radio, or they read something, and it might have been mildly heretical, but it sparked something in their mind, and they started asking, who knows? So I think we should be really careful about these things.
I heard a statement recently. Evangelism is more difficult than it used to be. What do you think about that? How does that land on you?
I think the human heart is hard as stone, and I find evangelism very easy if you're willing to look like a fool. I find evangelism very easy if you're willing to step out and say things that maybe people won't understand correctly or require some explaining. But I share my faith in a Muslim context regularly. Actually, I think coming to America, it's so easy. You don't go to jail for sharing your faith.
True.
Here,
True.
You don't get in trouble with people who come to faith and their family. Their families don't want to kill them. So I would say, I don't know what they mean. I guess I'd want to know. I'd want to understand what they mean. Apathy is definitely difficult. I do find the apathetic heart, the heart of stone to the gospel difficult. Those people who have been inoculated to the gospel.
Yeah.
I find that really difficult. A Southern context.
Oh, boy.
Where you have a lot of inoculation to the gospel.
I grew up in it. I know all about it.
But even then, the radical life, the call to Christ and to live a radical way for Him, and the willingness to be open about that, I find opens lots of doors for evangelism.
Well, the good news is it doesn't depend on us, does it?
No.
It doesn't depend on the perfect evangelism presentation. It doesn't depend on the mood of the person we're talking to or the background.
Right.
It really depends on the grace of God working to transform sinners' hearts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Mack, thank you for being with us this afternoon.
Sure.
You've helped me, I can assure you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
And I need,
Right.
well, our churches need help
Yeah.
with evangelism.
Right.